Welcome to Ace My Exams Learning. Let us get started with today's learning.
AIDS is a human disease caused by a virus. Viruses are referred to as obligate parasites. Question: what does AIDS stand for? AIDS stands for Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome. This is a disease that develops when a person's immune system becomes too weak to fight off infections due to damage caused by the human immunodeficiency virus HIV. Question: name the pathogen that causes AIDS. The disease AIDS is caused by a virus known as HIV, human immunodeficiency virus. This virus attacks the immune system, making it difficult for the body to fight infections and diseases. Question: why are viruses referred to as being obligate parasites? Viruses are called obligate parasites because they cannot survive or reproduce on their own. Instead, they must enter a living host cell and take over its functions to multiply. Unlike bacteria, which can grow and divide on their own, viruses completely depend on a host cell to reproduce. Question: describe the effects of drug abuse on the spread of HIV. Drug abuse increases the spread of HIV because it leads to risky behaviors. When people use drugs or alcohol, they often make poor decisions, such as engaging in unprotected sex, which increases their chances of getting infected. Many drug users also resort to prostitution to earn money for drugs, which further spreads the virus through unsafe sexual activities. Another major risk is sharing contaminated needles, as this allows HIV to pass directly from one person's bloodstream to another. Additionally, drugs and alcohol weaken judgment, making people less likely to take precautions to protect themselves from infection. Question: briefly describe how a virus multiplies inside a host cell. Viruses cannot reproduce on their own. They must enter a host cell to make copies of themselves. The process starts when the virus attaches to the surface of a host cell. Once attached, it injects its genetic material, DNA or RNA, into the cell, taking control of the cell's functions. Inside the host cell, the virus's genetic material merges with the DNA of the cell. The virus then uses the host cell's machinery to copy its own genetic material and produce new virus parts. The cell is forced to assemble these parts into new viruses. Once enough copies have been made, the host cell bursts open, releasing many new viruses into the body. These viruses then infect other cells, repeating the process and rapidly spreading the infection. This cycle allows the virus to multiply and spread throughout the body. Question: explain why bacteria are regarded as A. Autotrophic. Bacteria are regarded as autotrophic because they are able to make or manufacture their own food. Some bacteria, like cyanobacteria, use photosynthesis to produce food using sunlight, just like plants. Others, such as chemosynthetic bacteria, obtain energy by breaking down chemicals in their environment. Since autotrophic bacteria do not rely on other organisms for food, they can survive in extreme conditions where other life forms cannot. B. Heterotrophic. Bacteria are also regarded as heterotrophic because they are unable to make or manufacture their own food and must feed on other organisms. These bacteria obtain nutrients by consuming organic material from plants, animals, or decaying matter. Some heterotrophic bacteria act as decomposers, breaking down dead organisms and recycling nutrients into the ecosystem, while others may be parasitic, feeding on a living host and sometimes causing diseases. C. Prokaryotic. Bacteria are classified as prokaryotic because they have no true or definite nucleus and lack a nuclear membrane. Instead of storing their genetic material inside a nucleus, bacteria have a single circular DNA strand that floats freely in the cytoplasm. This simple cell structure distinguishes them from eukaryotic cells, which have a well-defined nucleus enclosed by a membrane. Being prokaryotic allows bacteria to reproduce quickly and adapt to different environments. Question: To which group of microorganisms does the malaria parasite belong? The malaria parasite belongs to the group Protista. Protists are microscopic organisms that are neither plants, animals, nor fungi. The malaria-causing protist, Plasmodium, is transmitted through mosquito bites and infects human red blood cells. Question. State 2 ways to avoid contracting malaria. 1. Take anti-malarial drugs. One effective way to avoid contracting malaria is to take anti-malarial drugs. These drugs help protect individuals from getting infected by killing the parasite in the bloodstream before it can cause symptoms. 2. Use insect repellents. Another way to prevent malaria is by using insect repellents on exposed skin. Mosquitoes are the primary vectors for transmitting malaria, so repelling them reduces the chance of being bitten and infected. Term 1 Revision, Life Science Grade 11. The diagram below represents the structure of a bacteriophage. Question. Identify and explain the following parts, namely A, B, C, D, E and F. Based on the common structure of a bacteriophage, the labeled parts can be identified as follows. A is the protein shield. The protein shield, also known as the capsid, is a protective covering that surrounds the genetic material of the bacteriophage. It is made up of protein molecules that fit together in a structured way, forming a strong outer shell. This shield has two main functions. It protects the viral DNA from damage, and it ensures the DNA is safely delivered into the host bacterium during infection. Without this shield, the viral DNA could be destroyed by environmental factors before it reaches its target. B is the DNA. DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, is the genetic material of a bacteriophage. It carries the instructions needed to take control of a bacterial cell and produce new virus particles. The DNA is stored inside the capsid, protein shield, until the bacteriophage finds a suitable host. Once attached to a bacterial cell, the virus injects its DNA into the host, where it hijacks the bacterial machinery to replicate and assemble new bacteriophages. This process continues until the bacterial cell bursts, releasing more viruses to infect other bacteria. C is known as the collar. The collar is a ring-like structure found in some bacteriophages, positioned between the capsid and the tail. Its main function is to provide stability by keeping these two parts firmly connected. In some cases, the collar may also help guide the DNA as it moves from the capsid, through the tail, and into the bacterial cell. By reinforcing the structure of the virus, the collar ensures that the infection process happens smoothly and efficiently. D is the shield. The term shield refers to any protective structure in the bacteriophage, but it mainly refers to the capsid. This shield plays a crucial role in keeping the virus's genetic material safe until the right conditions for infection are met. It ensures that the DNA is not damaged by external factors such as enzymes, radiation, or changes in temperature before the bacteriophage finds a bacterial host. E. Base plate. The base plate is an essential component of the bacteriophage's tail, located at the very end of the tail structure. It functions like a docking station, allowing the virus to attach securely to the surface of a bacterial cell. Once the bacteriophage is attached, the baseplate plays a key role in triggering the injection of viral DNA into the host cell. It undergoes structural changes that help push the DNA from the capsid through the tail and into the bacterium. F is the fiber. The fibers are long, thread-like extensions that project from the baseplate. These tail fibers act like sensors, helping the bacteriophage detect and recognize its specific bacterial host. When the fibers find the right type of bacterium, they attach to special receptors on the bacterial surface. This ensures that the bacteriophage does not waste its DNA on the wrong target. Once attached, the fibers help the bacteriophage hold onto the bacterium while the baseplate prepares to inject the viral DNA. Question. Why are viruses referred to as being acellular? Viruses are referred to as being acellular because they do not have a cell structure. They lack a nucleus, cytoplasm, or organelles and consist only of genetic material, DNA, or RNA, enclosed in a protein coat, making them non-cellular entities. Question. State one characteristic of viruses that qualifies them as A. Living things. Viruses are considered to be living things because they can reproduce, but only inside a host cell. They also die when their host is destroyed or when exposed to unfavorable conditions. B. Non-living things. Viruses qualify as non-living things, as they do not feed or respire, because they lack cellular structures such as organelles and enzymes needed for metabolism. Give the correct biological term for each of the following descriptions. Question. The gut that runs through an organism with two openings is called a. The correct answer is a through gut, which refers to a digestive system that has two openings, a mouth at one end and an anus at the other. This type of digestive system allows for a one-way flow of food through the body. Question. The tree that shows evolutionary relationships among different species is called a. The correct answer is phylogenetic tree. A phylogenetic tree is a diagram that represents how species have evolved from common ancestors over time. It shows branches, where closely related species are grouped together, helping scientists understand evolutionary connections. Question. A group of plants that have seeds enclosed in an ovary are known as. The correct answer is angiosperms. Angiosperms are flowering plants where the seeds develop inside a fruit or ovary. This protective structure helps in seed dispersal and provides an advantage over gymnosperms, which have exposed seeds. Question. The concentration of sense organs at the anterior end of an animal leading to the formation of a head is called. The correct answer is cephalization. Cephalization is the development of a distinct head region where sensory structures, such as eyes and a brain, are concentrated. This adaptation is common in bilaterally symmetrical animals and helps improve movement and environmental awareness. Question. The cell walls of most fungi are mainly composed of. The correct answer is chitin. Fungal cell walls contain chitin, a tough and flexible structural component. Unlike plants, which have cellulose-based cell walls, fungi rely on chitin for protection and structural support. Question. Viruses are referred to as being acellular because they. The correct answer is, they do not have a cell structure. Viruses lack a nucleus, cytoplasm, and organelles, consisting only of genetic material, DNA, or RNA, enclosed in a protein coat. This makes them non-cellular entities that depend on a host cell for replication. Question. Phylum of all animals with a vertebral column in adults. The correct answer is Chordata. The phylum Chordata includes all animals that possess a vertebral column, backbone, at some stage in their life cycle. This group includes fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. Question. Transfer of pollen from an anther to the stigma. The correct answer is pollination. Pollination is the process by which pollen grains are transferred from the anther, male reproductive part, to the stigma, female reproductive part, of a flower, enabling fertilization to occur. Question. The type of reproduction in plants that produces offspring with identical genetic composition. The correct answer is asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction occurs when plants produce offspring without the involvement of gametes, that is sperm and egg cells. Study the diagram below showing the arrangement of body tissues. Question. The type of symmetry shown in the diagram above is called. The correct answer is bilateral symmetry. This type of symmetry means that the body can be divided into two equal halves along a single plane, with one mirror image side on either side of the central axis. This is typical of many animals, including humans. Question. Explain one advantage of the symmetry mentioned in the question above. The correct answer is bilateral symmetry allows for cephalization. This means that the concentration of sensory organs and nervous tissue is located at the front of the organism, forming a distinct head. The advantage of cephalization is that it enhances the animal's ability to detect prey and danger more effectively, making it easier to interact with its environment. Question: identify the type of skeleton of the organism shown in the diagram above. The correct answer is exoskeleton. An exoskeleton is a hard external structure that provides support and protection to the organism. It is commonly found in arthropods, such as insects and crustaceans. Question: state 2 disadvantages of the type of skeleton mentioned in question above. The correct answer is 1. Exoskeleton restricts animal growth. Since the exoskeleton is rigid and does not grow with the animal, the organism needs to shed it periodically, which can be limiting for its growth. 2. Exoskeleton requires molting, which makes the animal vulnerable. During the process of shedding or molting its exoskeleton, the animal is exposed and more susceptible to predators. The diagram below shows the branch of the pine tree. Question: to which plant group does the pine tree belong? The correct answer is Gymnosperms. Gymnosperms are a group of seed-producing plants that do not form flowers or fruits. Instead, their seeds develop on the surface of cones. Question: identify one visible reason for your answer in the question above. The correct answer is presence of cones. Gymnosperms, such as pine trees, produce cones that contain their reproductive structures, which is a distinguishing feature of this plant group. Question: explain 2 significances of the shape of the leaves in the diagram above. The correct answer is 1. Leaves are needle-shaped, reducing the surface area exposed to the sun. This adaptation minimizes water loss by limiting the amount of transpiration that occurs. 2. Leaves have a thick cuticle. The thick, waxy coating on the leaves helps reduce water loss and protects the plant from harsh environmental conditions, such as cold and drought. Question: state the disadvantages of wind pollination. The correct answer is 1. Pollination can only occur during windy conditions. Wind pollination is entirely dependent on air movement to transport pollen between plants. If there is no wind, pollen remains stagnant, significantly reducing the chances of fertilization. This reliance on environmental factors makes wind pollination unpredictable and less reliable than pollination by animals or insects. 2. Requires a large amount of pollen to be produced. Since wind disperses pollen randomly, a large portion of it is lost or fails to reach the right plant. To compensate for this inefficiency, wind-pollinated plants must produce excessive amounts of pollen to increase the likelihood of successful fertilization. This high pollen production demands substantial energy investment from the plant. 3. Pollen is transported randomly, reducing efficiency. In wind pollination, pollen is released into the air without a set direction, meaning much of it may never reach a compatible flower or cone. This randomness makes wind pollination far less efficient compared to insect or animal pollination, where pollen transfer is more direct and targeted. 4. Requires reproductive structures to capture pollen. Because wind-pollinated plants do not rely on pollinators, their flowers or cones must have specialized adaptations to trap airborne pollen. Many have sticky surfaces or feathery stigmas that improve the chances of capturing pollen from the air. Without these adaptations, most pollen would be blown away, making fertilization difficult. 5. Pollen may land on flowers or cones of different species, preventing fertilization. Wind pollination does not discriminate between species, so pollen may settle on flowers or cones of unrelated plants. Since each species has a unique genetic composition, pollen landing on an incompatible plant is unlikely to result in successful fertilization, further reducing the effectiveness of wind pollination. The diagram below shows one of the phyla you studied. Question: identify the kingdom to which the above organism belongs. The organism belongs to the kingdom fungi. Members of the fungi kingdom are eukaryotic organisms that function primarily as decomposers in ecosystems. Fungi obtain nutrients through extracellular digestion, releasing enzymes to break down organic matter before absorbing the nutrients. They typically grow as thread-like structures called hyphae, which interconnect to form a network known as mycelium. This characteristic makes fungi effective in decomposing organic material and recycling nutrients in ecosystems. Question: give the letter and name of the part that A. Anchors the fungus to the substrate. The correct answer is D. Rhizoids. Rhizoids are root-like structures that anchor the fungus to its substrate, helping it stay in place. They also assist in the absorption of nutrients from decomposing organic matter. These structures are crucial for fungi like molds, which rely on rhizoids to attach to surfaces and gather nutrients. B. Provides a branched horizontal covering on the substrate. The correct answer is C. Stolon. Stolons are horizontal hyphae that spread across the surface of the substrate. They help the fungus expand and colonize new areas. This horizontal growth is important for the fungus, as it allows it to cover more ground and find more resources, contributing to the spread of the mycelium network. C. Produces mature spores. The correct answer is A. Sporangium. The sporangium is a structure responsible for producing and releasing spores in certain types of fungi, such as those in the Zygomycota group. These spores allow the fungus to reproduce and spread. While other fungi may produce spores in different structures, such as Conidia in Ascomycota or Basidia in Basidiomycota, the sporangium is specific to some fungi, particularly those that reproduce via spore formation in this structure. The diagram below represents a flower. Question: name the agent of pollination for the above flower. The agent of pollination for this flower is wind. Wind-pollinated flowers rely on air currents to carry pollen from one flower to another. Unlike flowers pollinated by insects, birds, or other animals, wind-pollinated flowers do not attract pollinators with bright colors, nectar, or scent. Instead, they produce large amounts of lightweight pollen, which is easily carried by the wind, to increase the chances of successful pollination. Question: list the characteristics of the flower that make it adapted for the agent mentioned in the question above. 1. Wind-pollinated flowers produce light, smooth, and dry pollen grains, which makes it easier for the wind to carry them over long distances. Since wind pollination is a random process, these flowers produce large amounts of pollen to increase the chances of successful fertilization. The lightweight and dry nature of the pollen prevents it from clumping together, allowing it to be dispersed more efficiently by air currents. 2. Wind-pollinated flowers have a large, feathery, and sticky stigma, which is specially adapted to capture airborne pollen. The feathery structure provides a greater surface area, making it more effective in trapping pollen grains as they pass through the air. Additionally, the sticky surface helps the pollen adhere to the stigma, ensuring that fertilization can take place once the pollen reaches the flower. 3. Wind-pollinated flowers have loosely attached and flexible anthers, which allow them to move freely with the slightest breeze. This movement helps release large amounts of pollen into the air, increasing the chances that some of it will reach other flowers of the same species. By being positioned outside the flower, the anthers are exposed to the wind, making pollen dispersal more effective. Question: name the advantage of asexual reproduction in plants. 1. One major advantage of asexual reproduction in plants is the ability to produce offspring rapidly. This allows plants to multiply quickly, especially when conditions such as water, nutrients, and sunlight are favorable. By reproducing at a fast rate, plants can spread efficiently and dominate their environment, increasing their chances of survival. 2. Another key benefit of asexual reproduction in plants is that the offspring are genetically identical to the parent. Since there is no genetic variation, all new plants inherit the same traits as the parent. If the parent is well adapted to its surroundings, the offspring will also thrive under the same environmental conditions, ensuring the species' continued success. 3. Asexual reproduction in plants also offers the advantage of a faster reproduction cycle. Unlike sexual reproduction, which requires pollination, fertilization, and seed development, asexual reproduction eliminates these steps. This means new plants can grow directly from the parent, allowing for quicker expansion of the population. 4. Additionally, asexual reproduction in plants does not depend on external factors like pollinators or seed dispersal. In environments where pollinators such as bees, birds, or the wind are limited, sexual reproduction may not be reliable. Asexual reproduction ensures that plants can continue to reproduce successfully without relying on outside agents, making it an effective strategy for survival in challenging or isolated environments. Question: explain why seedless vascular plants are able to grow taller than non-vascular plants. 1. Seedless vascular plants can grow taller than non-vascular plants because they possess xylem and phloem. These specialized vascular tissues transport water, minerals, and nutrients throughout the plant. With an efficient internal transport system, seedless vascular plants, such as ferns, can support larger structures and grow much taller than non-vascular plants, which lack these tissues. 2. The presence of xylem allows seedless vascular plants to transport water and minerals from the roots to the rest of the plant. Xylem plays a crucial role in maintaining hydration and providing structural support. This upward movement of water ensures that taller plants can receive the moisture they need to survive. In contrast, non-vascular plants rely on simple diffusion, which limits their ability to transport water over long distances, restricting their height. 3. Phloem enables the distribution of nutrients and sugars throughout the plant, supporting its growth. Phloem carries sugars produced during photosynthesis from the leaves to other parts of the plant, ensuring that all tissues receive the necessary energy for development. Without this efficient distribution system, plants would struggle to grow beyond a certain height. Non-vascular plants lack phloem, making it difficult for them to sustain larger structures. 4. The internal transport system in seedless vascular plants allows them to grow taller and stronger compared to non-vascular plants. Non-vascular plants, such as mosses and liverworts, rely on direct absorption and diffusion of water and nutrients, which limits their size. In contrast, vascular plants have evolved xylem and phloem, enabling them to grow upright, reach sunlight more effectively, and spread over larger areas. Question: give the adaptations of angiosperms that help them survive on land. 1. One adaptation that helps angiosperms survive on land is the presence of a waxy cuticle on their leaves. This cuticle acts as a protective layer that prevents excessive water loss due to evaporation. Since water can be scarce on land, this adaptation allows angiosperms to conserve moisture and survive in drier environments. 2. Another key adaptation of angiosperms is the presence of true roots, stems, and leaves. Roots anchor the plant in the soil and absorb water and nutrients, while stems provide support and transport materials throughout the plant. Leaves carry out photosynthesis, converting sunlight into energy for growth. These structures enable angiosperms to efficiently obtain resources and thrive in terrestrial habitats. 3. The enclosed embryo within a seed provides protection and enhances survival on land. Seeds shield the developing embryo from harsh environmental conditions such as drought, extreme temperatures, and predators. The protective seed coat prevents the embryo from drying out before germination, increasing the chances of successful reproduction in land-based ecosystems. 4. Angiosperms also have vascular tissues, xylem and phloem, that support their survival and growth. Xylem transports water and minerals from the roots to other parts of the plant, while phloem distributes sugars and nutrients where needed. This vascular system allows angiosperms to grow tall, transport essential resources efficiently, and adapt to various terrestrial environments. Read and answer the questions below. Malaria is a life-threatening disease responsible for over 400,000 deaths worldwide each year. Question: name the protozoan that causes malaria. The correct answer is Plasmodium. This is the protozoan parasite responsible for causing malaria. When an infected Anopheles mosquito bites a person, it injects Plasmodium parasites into the bloodstream. These parasites first travel to the liver, where they multiply before attacking and destroying red blood cells, leading to the symptoms of malaria. Question: name the vector that spreads malaria. The correct answer is Anopheles mosquito. This mosquito is the vector, meaning it carries and transmits the malaria-causing Plasmodium parasite from one person to another. When an infected mosquito bites a human, it transfers the parasite into the bloodstream, spreading the disease. Question: list the symptoms experienced by people with malaria. People infected with malaria experience several symptoms, including 1. Fever and chills. These are the most common symptoms. The parasite infects and destroys red blood cells, causing repeated episodes of high fever, sweating, and chills. 2. Headache, nausea, and vomiting. As the immune system fights the infection, the body reacts by triggering headaches, nausea, and vomiting, which can lead to dehydration and general weakness. Question: explain why malaria is only found in certain regions of Africa. Malaria is common in certain parts of Africa because of the warm and humid climate, which provides the perfect breeding conditions for the Anopheles mosquito. High temperatures allow the Plasmodium parasite to develop inside the mosquito, making it more likely to be transmitted to humans. Regions with stagnant water sources, such as lakes, ponds, and swamps, also support the breeding of these mosquitoes, increasing the spread of malaria. Grade 11 learners conducted an experiment to determine the optimum temperature for growth of bread mold. The following procedure was undertaken. 4 labeled plastic containers, A, B, C, and D, were used. A slice of bread was placed in each container and sprinkled with 20 milliliters of water. The containers were stored in different conditions as listed below. A. Fridge. B. Cupboard. C. Room temperature. D. Window sill. After 1 week, the bread slices were removed and compared for mold growth. The experiment was repeated twice for reliability. The results. After 1 week, the highest mold growth, 75%, was observed on the bread placed on the window sill, followed by room temperature, 50%, and the cupboard, 25%. The least mold growth, 5%, occurred in the fridge. Question: identify the A. Dependent variable. Dependent variable. The growth of bread mold is the dependent variable. A dependent variable is the factor that is measured or observed in an experiment to determine how it is affected by changes in the independent variable. In this investigation, the amount of mold growth on the bread slices was recorded as a percentage after 1 week. Since the mold growth depended on the temperature conditions in which the bread was placed, it is classified as the dependent variable. B. Identify the independent variable. The temperature is the independent variable. An independent variable is the factor that is deliberately changed or controlled in an experiment to observe its effect on the dependent variable. In this case, the bread slices were placed in different environments with varying temperatures, inside a fridge, in a cupboard, at room temperature, and on a window sill. The purpose of the investigation was to examine how these temperature differences influence the growth of bread mold, making temperature the independent variable. Question: what did the learners do to improve the reliability of their investigation? The learners repeated the investigation to improve its reliability. Repeating an experiment ensures that the results are consistent and not just due to chance. By conducting the investigation multiple times, the learners could confirm that the mold growth patterns observed were accurate and not influenced by random external factors. This increases the credibility of their findings. Question: identify one factor that was kept constant during the investigation. One constant variable in the investigation was the amount of water sprinkled on each slice of bread, which was 20 milliliters. Keeping this factor the same ensured that any differences in mold growth were due to temperature rather than varying moisture levels. If the amount of water had been different for each slice, it could have affected the results, making it unclear whether temperature or water availability was responsible for the differences in mold growth. Coronavirus, the world's greatest enemy. Question: state 2 recommendations to prevent the spread of coronavirus. The following recommendations can be used to prevent the spread of coronavirus. 1. Regular hand washing. Washing hands frequently with soap and water helps remove virus particles, preventing the spread of the virus, especially after touching contaminated surfaces. Proper hand hygiene significantly reduces the risk of infection. 2. Covering the mouth and nose when coughing or sneezing. This prevents respiratory droplets containing the virus from being released into the air, reducing the chances of infecting others. Using a tissue or the elbow to cover coughs and sneezes is an effective measure. 3. Maintaining social distancing. Keeping a safe distance from others, particularly in public spaces, minimizes the risk of inhaling respiratory droplets carrying the virus, thus reducing person-to-person transmission. Question: give one reason why it is difficult to develop a cure for viral diseases. Viruses are non-living and rely on host cells to replicate. Unlike bacteria, which can be killed with antibiotics, viruses cannot be destroyed in the same way. Developing a cure is challenging because antiviral treatments must target the virus without damaging healthy human cells, making treatment complex and difficult. Question: explain the effect of coronavirus suppressing the immune system in people with underlying conditions or diseases. 1. Overloads the already weakened immune system. People with underlying health conditions, such as diabetes, heart disease, or respiratory illnesses, often have an immune system that is not functioning at full strength. When coronavirus attacks the body, their weakened immune system struggles to mount an effective defense, making them more susceptible to severe illness. 2. Higher risk of infections. Since their immune system is already compromised, these individuals are not only more vulnerable to severe COVID-19 symptoms, but also at greater risk of developing secondary infections, such as bacterial pneumonia or other viral illnesses, further worsening their health. 3. Reduced ability to recover. A weakened immune system means the body takes longer to fight off infections. As a result, people with pre-existing conditions are more likely to experience prolonged illness, severe complications, organ damage, or even death due to their body's inability to fully eliminate the virus. Question: state 1 significance of vaccines in the human body. They stimulate the immune system to produce antibodies. Vaccines trigger the immune system to recognize and prepare antibodies against specific pathogens, ensuring that if the body is exposed to the pathogen in the future, it can respond more quickly and effectively. This process helps protect the body from infections by training the immune system to recognize and neutralize harmful invaders before they can cause serious illness.
To access more learning and exam preparation materials, go to www.acemyexams.coza. This link is also in the video description below. Thank you for watching this video. Remember to subscribe and be the first to know when we upload new videos.